to the place where singles shine, celebrating life, divine by design. In faith and love, we intertwine. Route 77, where your journey's prime.
Welcome to the Route 77 podcast. Today we're tackling a question that lingers in the background of so many conversations about singleness. Does singleness really need to be fixed? Whether it's loneliness, struggles with purity, or societal expectations, the idea that marriage is the answer to all life's problems is something we've probably all encountered. But is that really the case? Or are we placing impossible expectations on a relationship that was never meant to bear that weight? So grab a seat, settle in, and let's have an honest conversation about singleness, marriage, and the myths that keep us chasing a fix, instead of embracing the life God has given us. Welcome to the Route 77 podcast. I am your host, Natasha, and I am here with Monique.
Hello.
And David.
Hello.
And
I have to say something. It's St. Patrick's Day. I have no idea what color David is wearing. You have green on your shirt. I never thought of that. I'm going, this is toasty grass.
Here, I'll show you what I can do. I can do it.
I ate something green. Does that count? I had a sandwich with lettuce in it.
David said he ate something green. Does that count?
There we go.
I had green in my. They have a new Cheerios out. They are fruity flavored Cheerios, and they're supposed to be healthier. So there was green ones in there. So I guess I had to.
There you go.
So happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody out there.
There we go. I'm St. Patrick Day.
Adorable. All right then. What's our topic for today?
It is St. Patrick's. No, just kidding. It is about fixing things, specifically fixing singleness, because as you may know from listening to our podcast in the past, we often tell you that singleness is a problem to be fixed.
I'm sitting there going, what? That's
no sarcasm at all.
No comment on that.
But I'm going to take this off because it's annoying now. But yeah, I did my St. Patrick's thing for a bit. It doesn't work well with the headphones. So anyhow,
I could maybe wear earrings.
There you go.
There you go.
They're like Christmas Patrick's. Yes, we haven't put them away yet.
They'll be here until next Christmas, so we don't have to go dig them out.
At this rate, we have a teacher coming to stay for a week, so hopefully we'll put some stuff away by then.
Yeah, we will.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, it's a thing that people sometimes, like, I don't know if they specifically say out loud or in their head specifically, singleness is a problem to be fixed. And yet it's treated that way by churches, by society, by others, by yourself. Like, you're like, if only I were married, then I could do this and life would be good. So even though we may not specifically say that, we live like it, or others live like it and act like it.
Yeah.
And it's not a problem to be fixed. It's a part of life that you endure and have to slog through, live to your fullest.
It's how you treat it. That's all how you treat it. If you treat it like a problem to be fixed, then it is a problem to be fixed. So you got to not treat it like a problem.
I think it's a fix for... Sorry, yeah?
I was just thinking, is it actually the singleness that needs to be fixed, or the issues we think singleness brings you that we think marriage?
It's all deep. It's all, you got to fix.
It's a very...
issues with yourself.
Sometimes it's something like, oh, I'm lonely and that'll fix that. Or I'm stuck in pornography, so if only I were married and having sex the appropriate way, then I wouldn't have this issue with pornography.
And the double income. If I got married, then we would have more money and we would be able to go and travel.
And
travel? No.
Even sometimes but even sometimes it's with same-sex attraction. People think, or even the actual person might think, if only I had a heterosexual marriage, then that will fix what's wrong with me or what's wrong with them, or any sinful thing that magic is that marriage is somehow a magic trick that will fix everything. And it's especially, I think I was thinking about this topic because of Samuel putting on his website, Samuel Perez putting on his Facebook page or TikTok, was that people can't just keep going around like telling same-sex attracted people that the fix for them is that they find a heterosexual marriage to be in. And then all of a sudden everything will be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It will fix your gayness. It will. Because if you're a happy person and you get married, it can quite possibly make you miserable. That's my. It's ridiculous the things that they say that marriage will fix, because it really, if you've got these problems before marriage, can actually make it worse.
Yeah. Or it's a Band-Aid for a time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But everything starts to boil out again.
Like you said,
because it's not.
It could be a magic trick, an illusion.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're quite familiar with illusions right now.
Yes. So, yeah. So it's just, we see this but even like in the church, I think I mentioned it before, but oftentimes a singles ministry in a church is run like they're trying to put themselves out of business. The point is that they're trying to marry off all the people within the ministry, and then they will have been a success.
Sorry. I will show you the issue that I've been having. Oh, hang on a second. Oh, and I turned myself off too. That's not good. Yeah. So this is what's happening. Hero, which is this guy here on the bottom, the black one. Hang on, wrong side. So now it's gone again. Anyways, you saw the picture. He is pestering Cheetah, who's trying to sleep in the hammock.
Sounds about right.
His siblings for you.
No, I want that spot. No, you don't. Anyways, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think it was just as we go about it, like if churches, they act, if only they can marry off all their singles, then they're a success. And again, it's not like they're going to write it into their mission statement of their singles ministry, but that's how it usually gets run. It's like, if we put on enough singles events, the singles will mingle, and then they will be the jingle of wedding bells. Trying to make a rhyme there. And there's a lot of things. This is like just an intro. So there's so many things that they can fix. Like, I won't be lonely anymore. I won't struggle with lust or porn once I have a spouse. Getting married will suppress my same-sex attractions. A godly spouse will make me a better person.
I'm going to push back on one of the things that you said there, that I think that you think the church puts together the singles group as a way to marry off their single. But I have another thought there, and I think this is something that I recall when I went to the singles group, is that because a couple of friends of ours tried to put a singles ministry together, not to marry people, but to encourage singles. And they said what they found is that as people started coming to their singles events, it was like a meat market, and it was totally against what they wanted to see, because they're like us, you know them, Betty and Lorraine, our friends.
Yeah.
And they just dissolved it because it was going out of their thought of what they wanted to do with the singles ministry, which is something to encourage singles like we do to live your best life, and that marriage isn't the end.
The problem I think that it started within the church. Like, they didn't have a proper theology of singleness that was being taught in a healthy way, so that people had the mindset to go into a singles ministry. And so I find, like, I was never taught that I can recall about what it meant to be a single person, other than the highest calling of a woman is a wife and mother, or like you're expecting a guy to get married, have kids. That's the expectation. And it's never what if this doesn't happen is never answered specifically. I've been seeing a lot more singles oriented sermons lately. If I go looking for them, I see them not just at our church, but in other churches too. But it's a very recent development. Like, you don't often go back 10 years, 15 years, see a sermon that was about that topic. Like, they might touch on it, like, there's the gift of singleness, blah, blah, blah. You hear that verse all the time, and that's as much as they talk about it. So is it any wonder that when they get to a singles ministry, that's what they're expecting? is the meat market, is the getting married. They go in with that expectation.
Right.
And I think, and so it has to start within the church, and then it broadens out. So and it shouldn't just be teaching single people about this. You should be teaching the church as a whole, because every church has like every single person within the church knows a single person, was once a single person, may once again be a single person, has children who are single and will have a single period of their time that they're teaching. And oftentimes they're teaching them like, when you're a husband, when you're a mother, when you're a wife, when you're a father, we expect these things, but it's not like there's no expectations of when you're single other than that you shouldn't have sex. But that's really the only thing you're taught about being a single person, is that, yeah, you've got to not have sex till you're married.
Which kind of highlight that.
Yeah, it's like the only thing is you got to sit there with your legs crossed and try not to, I don't know, burst your sexuality all over the world. That's pretty much what it feels like. You just got to hold it all in.
Forget that metal chastity belt and give a key to your parents.
Yeah, or whatever.
That's what they did in medieval times, don't you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
But even like when you think about it, like, because like I said, like, that's the only focus that you're given as a single person, just don't have sex. That becomes your whole focus, is on when I get to have sex then. And then no wonder, like, people, you're already at a time of life, usually in your late teens, early 20s, that you're already feeling that sort of heightened sexual part of your life, where that is a big part. And then you're told basically, don't focus on it, but focus on it.
Right.
And then it's just that there's no expectation of singleness. There's no reality given to them that this singleness might be for an extended period of time. So it's not just, if I just hold the sex in until I'm 20 and get married, then I'm fine. What if you're 30, 40, 50? There's no reasonable expectation of what life could be.
Correct.
And within the church where I grew up, it was like, you always felt like you're a failure. Not that they came and said you're a failure, but when you're told that this is the highest calling, this is what the expectation of God is, that you become a wife and a mother, and that doesn't happen, and you're 20, 30, and you see all the people around you getting married, and you're like, and they're having kids, and they're popping kids out left and center, and you're just there by yourself, like this weird
token single
alien.
person.
You know what's also very I don't even know the correct word for it, but you can't grow up with the inherent knowledge that singleness is okay. You can't, because in order for you to even remotely grow up, your parents had to be in a relationship. They had to be married. So you already grow up in an environment where it seems like being married and having kids is the norm, and that singleness is simply like not like 1/4 of your life, 1/5 of your life, just from when you were born till when you're like 20 or so. Your parents probably can't really demonstrate singleness because they've probably been married for a couple years already. So the parents would have to willingly pivot teachings or whatever towards singleness, or emphasize that as a child is growing up. But that's it. You don't get that, because every child in the world grows up like that, right?
Most children, yeah.
No, every child. Because in order, even if it's a bad or good relationship, in order for a child to come into existence, they have to have some form of relationship.
Not nowadays. I actually know a girl who went through IVF to have a child because she couldn't find a person.
That's a podcast for another day.
Yep.
That's a podcast for another day. Yeah. I just like to throw that fly in your ointment. Sorry. But no, you're right, because generally children grow up in a mother-father home. We're going to use the mother-father narrative because that is our Christian belief. So for a child to grow up, they understand that relationships are mother, father, and children, because that's what they know from their home life. And if their home life is good, this is what they want for their own life. There is this psychologist who says that for some kids, if the home life is bad, they will marry the spouse that they want to fix. from their relationship. So that's how they end up in that kind of a relationship, which is a possibility in some senses when I think about my relationship with my late husband. But that's another story for another podcast. So yeah, you're right. And I think we've had this conversation, like Pastor Adam, he said, it's funny. I never thought that I had to change how I talk to my children about marriage and singleness until you guys brought it to our attention that we need to say things differently. Like instead of when you get married, it's if you get married.
It's
Because
it's also not necessarily the parents' fault, because the parents probably wanted to have kids and wanted to get married. That was a goal of theirs, and then when they achieved it, they're just in that environment now. That's just kind of life, and regardless of the child's choices, they're just going to be raised witnessing that kind of relationship, right?
Sorry, nothing to do with you, David. Our Roomba decided to start up and finish their job, so we're not laughing at you.
and I was just thinking, do I have to go over there and pause him? And then I started to go, you have a mind. So stop. Crazy. Continue, David.
Oh,
Sorry.
I finished when Nick started laughing. That was all my final point.
We will pick that up and cut this part out. There is, to get back to our topic, you have listed here some of the illusions of a fix that marriage, some of the lies, I guess. It really is, because these are kind of things that we believe because we want to believe them.
And they make sense in a way.
Because we think if I marry somebody, then my problem will actually become their problem and then they will fix it for me.
Or that the problem is not a heart issue.
Right.
It's a circumstance issue.
Circumstances. Yeah.
I wouldn't steal to eat if I had food and money. If you just had money, then you wouldn't have to steal to eat. That type of idea. If only I had access to sex in a godly way, then I wouldn't have the need to look for it elsewhere, and I wouldn't have the struggle with it. And so they don't see it as actually a heart issue, a sin issue that can only be dealt with God and not through any other means.
Yeah. And if I had somebody with me all the time, like a spouse, then I wouldn't feel lonely. They would make me a better person. I've heard this. I love you because you make me a better person. I'm pretty sure I hear crickets right now.
Well, I hear a lot of that on TV shows nowadays.
Yes. I'm hearing
Like-
that a lot.
And we say things like, if it wasn't for you, make me the better version of myself. And that's always, they always give it to the other person. That's the romantic thing that people say. It's just, if it weren't for you, I don't know where I'd be. You've made me a better person. You, like, they always put that in like the silly wedding vows that they always make up for themselves. I'm the best version of myself because of you, blah, 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 blah. It's always like it's a human fix that's possible.
That sounds like a very heavy burden to put on your spouse. I'm broken. You can fix me. Thank you very much.
Goes both ways, buddy.
And on TV, they work.
Yeah.
Like I've been binging Big Bang Theory lately.
TV's fake.
I know. But
For
I've been
storybooks.
binging like TV Big Bang Theory right now and rewatching it. And I've seen it before. But you actually see like some characters who, once they get in a relationship, like it changes, like say Howard, like completely who they are. You're creepy and sexually sleazy, and then he gets married, and then all of a sudden, like, he's sort of like a respectable husband.
Yeah, husband and a father, and all of a sudden he's like clean and not so creepy.
Howard.
Yeah, it's just like that's what fixed him, was the fact that he found the right woman.
Yeah,
you know,
Thanks to Penny.
and yeah, for Leonard, yeah, that's what fixed him, and Amy fixed Sheldon, and
poor Raj is left out in the cold.
he's too broken.
Yeah,
No woman can fix him.
Nobody can fix him.
Yeah,
That's
but it's just
he's
interesting.
the
But we
total
accept,
single person.
yeah, sad, lonely single person. But but as the viewer, we accept that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't believe that's how it works in real life. I don't think that. But as a viewer, we watch it and we just say, yep, okay. Because we want it to be true. And in a sense, I think sometimes it does. Like having a person in your life that is loving and supportive, especially if you didn't have that for your life, might change things and just, but it's not, I don't think it'll change things that really matter in the sense of it won't change your heart. It may not, it probably won't be long lasting.
No. And there are some things that it will not change, no matter how loving or how good you are. Like if you're somebody who has addiction issues, getting married is not going to fix it. You may think it does and you'll try to hide it, but it will reveal itself in time. And in some cases, it can result in very disastrous, like my cousin who was in a relationship with a guy who was to heroin, and she had tried to help him get better, to get clean and sober. I don't know if he ever went into treatment. He might have, but it never worked for him. And she couldn't save him. And their relationship was fractured in a whole lot of ways. And he was discovered deceased in his truck. I think it was now 2 years ago. So this is the kind of thing that people want to believe is I am so broken and that will fix me. It won't.
And the saddest thing is like, as much as you as the person feel like you can fix them, the actual person like believes that they can be fixed that way.
Yeah.
So they go into it with the willpower of, yes, I'm going to be different this time. I'm going to not do whatever it is that was detrimental to my life and to those around me. But then almost makes the fall, that when they fall, all the worse.
Yeah.
Because they realize that it didn't matter. They still weren't strong enough. And so it almost becomes a worse fall because they honestly tried as much as they were capable. And then they had a weak moment and it destroys them even worse.
Yeah. Yeah. Your best option is, if you are in that kind of a situation, is to separate from the relationship and say, I want to make myself a better person for you and seek help. Without God, though, some people can. Depends upon how strong. But those help groups like AA and NA and stuff like that, they have that 12-step program, but they still all base it around, once upon a time, it used to be based on really strong Christian principles. It has deviated away from there.
It's more like a new age, higher power thing.
Yeah.
But there is still
You're still given a Bible.
a sense, but also there's like a sense that there's something beyond yourself.
Yeah.
That needs to be a part of it.
Yeah. So that's the extreme side of it, though. We won't go that far into the extreme side of it. We're going to hope that the kind of fixing you're thinking is, yeah, I have a spending problem, get really irritable and pissy at people when I'm driving the car, and that person's going to make me a better person so that I'm not that way anymore. Okay.
Yeah.
Did you like that?
Very much. So as we look, right, exactly, like we think that it will fix loneliness. I think that's probably the number one thing, is that we think that it's going to fix the loneliness. And the truth is, like, you can be lonely, or actually the cliche is that you can be lonely in a room full of people. And it's like the same thing. You can be lonely in a marriage for a variety of reasons. Even a healthy marriage, you will have times of loneliness because the other person is not God. They can't 100% connect with you on every single thing. And so there may be times when you are going through something, or you're feeling something, or you're saying something that the other person doesn't connect the same way as you. And you feel frustrated and you feel alone because like you feel nobody understands or nobody's going through this with you, even if it's a healthy relationship.
Now,
Because
you
we're
had
people.
you had actually posted a video to our chat the other day, and you were talking to me about it last night. And there were some really, really good talking points that you had mentioned that this guy had said about living in community, because he's a gay man and he has a home, I guess, that where other people can come and just be
Be single.
Yeah. did you want to touch on anything that he said there? Because he mentions about loneliness and stuff like that, didn't he?
Yeah, like he was talking about, because I think they have 8 people that are living in the house, and not all of them are same sex attracted. They're all believers in one way or another for different denominations and things like that. But they have committed to a lifelong celibacy for whatever reason they feel God's calling them to it. So his view is that that we are craving an intimacy with people, but we tend to think that the only intimacy we can have with the same sex is sexual. And so we push aside sex,
Same sex or different sex?
same sex, because a lot of times we think that the opposite sex is like normal to have relationship. Again, it's tend to be sexual, but actually the same sex relationships, we only see them ever portrayed, or where the society has us thinking that the only way to portray it is sexual or romantic. And that
The
you
narrative
can't,
too is that if they get married to somebody of the opposite sex, it will fix them.
yeah.
Yeah. Go
And
on.
instead that he found that because he is attracted, same sex attracted, but believes that God wants only there to be like a husband and a wife, like a man and a woman in a sexual relationship is in a marriage relationship is the only appropriate one. And so he said he found that by having an intimate relationship, and again, that's a weird word to use because again, we associate it with sexual or romantic, but it's just like having a close relationship with other people of the same gender has actually diminished the same sex attractions that he has been feeling.
The sexual act.
Yeah, the sexual appetite side of it. And he found that it was just like the more that you actually connect with the people of your own gender in a meaningful way, the more understanding and more connected you feel to people, and the less of these other things, not just same-sex attraction, but less of these other things that we think that are missing. Because in today's society, it's so hard to have a close relationship with the same gender, especially for men. I think women can get away with it. There's this like idea of having your girlfriends and they're not girlfriends. A little more.
Kind of thing, and then y'all go out for coffee.
Yeah.
Talk about stupid things. Yeah.
And so there's this idea about but with men, it's if they have any sort of intimate relationship in the sense of that they go through things together, they talk about deep things, they get emotional if they need to or whatever. Who knows? I'm not a guy, but there's times when it happens and times that it doesn't. But so to actually have those relationships across the genders, but also with your own gender, is very important, I think. And we think again, like Monique pointed out, that if we get married, then it will fix these intimacy issues that we have, not realizing that God designed us to be intimate with in a variety of manners, not just sexual romantic, but actually to be in close community with one another. And so that's why he had created this house. He called it the Nashville something of brothers or something like that. And was that they're committed to lifelong celibacy, lifelong singleness, but they wanted there to be like a close family bond between them so that they can go through life together and have the support and have the people around them and not be like worried about dying alone and not be all these things just because they have chosen a lifetime of singleness or celibacy.
Yeah. And we've noticed that ourselves even with our own home. Like we're in year 5. We're about to renew our mortgage, and we've already discovered through many situations that we've had to go through that we have the support of each other as friends and sisters in Christ. So when my daughter's in the hospital, I have your support. When our jobs are frustrating us, we have each other's support. And when our family members pass away, like it did a couple of weeks ago with your aunt and my dad back to back, now we had each other's support to get us through so that we're not finding ourselves burdened down by having to carry it by ourselves. It's just, and it's just, we're sisters in Christ, we're friends, we're living a celibate life, and people don't understand that's a good thing, and that's a normal thing, and that there doesn't have to be this is a society thing. Sex is everything is a society thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's what you get in almost any kind of culture.
If
By the end of the collapse of the cultures, that's what it ends up dumbing down to is sexual identity and sex.
Yeah.
pretty
Well,
much.
almost every secular movie, every book,
Oh, yeah.
all these fantasy stories and romances, and even if you think you've got, oh, this is just about like dragons, right, Natasha? It was like, where did part come into this? I thought I was reading
Yes.
a story about dragons, and
Then it-
I've had books do that to me too, where I'm just like, oh, this is a cool story, and all of a sudden, I just
Yeah,
read that.
yes, pornographic, full on pornographic X-rated
Yeah.
You can
scenes,
also just
randomly inserted.
You can also watch movies or TV shows, and then you're like, "Oh, there's a book of this." And you go read the book, and it's like 100 times worse.
There should be like a giant XXX on the front, not just
Yeah.
like a little rating.
Yeah.
But
This
yeah,
rating
but
this
even-
was erotic scenes. Okay, we will skip that one. You very much.
TV
Uh,
shows make it look like they're kids' TV shows, and their audience is driven towards like young adults, kids, and teenagers. And then the books are like the complete opposite. There's okay, no,
Yeah. Apparently,
do not read the book.
yeah. Apparently, Twilight was like that. It was supposed to be a teenager's version of 50 Shades of Grey. I haven't read either of those, just so you know. And then I remember when 50 Shades of Grey came out, and everybody was just like, this is the best book ever. And it's just, and the person who wrote it, because Twilight didn't go as far into the detail that she wants, so she created
The deviancy that they went in. And it's just, but even as we watch, like I said, The Big Bang Theory, and we see Raj as being the single person, and he just goes around whining about how he's going to be alone all his whole life. And he's an unhealthy person. Yes. Like he has a lot of issues or whatever. And they do end him as being, spoiler alert, but it's been over for a few years. So tough luck. They do end him single, even though I think they had a legitimate person that he was dating at the end. That actually seemed interesting, but they ended him single and he accepted it. I think at the end, he was just like, whatever, whatever, it is what it is. But it was just like, you felt like, unless you were into any of, like, you did, I accepted it that the character who's single is always going to be sad and wishing they were married and wondering what was wrong with them. And there was never like a powerful single person. I don't think I can't think of a powerful single person in a movie, TV series, or book.
Sherlock Holmes. He on
Yeah.
drugs, though.
no. You had relationships, no?
See?
Oh yeah, there was, and I just could. I don't think I don't. If there's books, then I haven't read the books. But there was an on and off relationship with
What's
a
up, books?
girl that he had going on until.
But he never got married.
No, I don't think he ever did get married.
No.
I think the only powerful single person I can think of in a book is Jesus.
Yes. And that one is the epitome of perfect singleness.
Singleness, yes. And you think that if marriage was a requirement to have the full blessing of God, then Jesus would have gotten married and had kids if it was a requirement. Or if something was the highest calling, do you not think that Jesus would have been called to it?
Just a side note, there was one movie producer who did try to go that route, and it was a failure.
Oh, it's a theory out there with Mary Magdalene and everything. That's been a theory for many years, but
Yeah.
it's just the fact that, or there's even the fact that they think he's gay because he had these men walking around with them and he was close with them. But again, the whole like
What?
intimacy of the same gender. Yeah. There's even a thing out there about how he was really transgender or no gender, non-binary, but who knows? They're always going to read what they want to
There's
and
no-
things.
If there's any form of backing evidence for that, it's gonna be so far, like in the 16th, 17th, 18th century. It just doesn't make.
Yeah.
Oh.
But it's just, but again, you get
It's people's way of trying to bring him into their.
But also, again, there's like the whole idea that you can't have a close, intimate relationship with the same gender unless it's romantic sexual.
Yep.
And I guess that's why I've said before, that's one thing I really appreciated about the show Psych was that it was two guy friends. And yeah, they ended up with girlfriends and whatever throughout and stuff. But it was their friendship. It was just a good male friendship.
Mhm.
And it wasn't anything more than friendship. And it was the fact that they knew each other and were there for each other and could riff on each other and all those things that made
Friends
that.
do.
Yeah. So it made the show work, I think, because of the friendship that they actually showed. And it's so rare that you actually see that. Like, it's just, I don't know. So it's just the fact that it has that singleness can still meet all these needs that we think, well, marriage will fix. They can still be met outside of that with other intimate relationships that aren't sexual, that are platonic.
Yeah.
And it's just, so again, if we think when we talked about the guy who had the house with the housemates, about how it wasn't the marriage that would quote unquote fix him. He believed that he was believing the road that God called him to do in celibacy. And he found that by living the life that he feels God's calling him to do in singleness, celibacy, but with intimate, non-sexual relationships with other people, he realizes that the fulfillment of what he thought was needed sexually was actually being fulfilled in just simply a relationship with people. That was platonic.
It's funny how you have to always qualify with that, with intimacy. Back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, something like that. Just before around 1900, something like that. Anyways, the word intercourse used to mean having conversations with each other. It never meant what it does now. And this is how our language has changed to where innocent words were changed to mean something that now means something completely different, to the point where you almost have to avoid saying them anymore, because the minute you say them, people think something else rather than what your real meaning of them is.
Or you have to qualify them all the time.
You have to qualify them all the time. Yeah.
Even in our applications to have like students and stuff, we have to qualify that we're just friends living in the same house. We're not. And
We're not in that kind of
relationship. And then people said something about, a woman will say, "Oh, I was out with my girlfriend," and you're like, "Do you mean girlfriend or girlfriend?" Because we don't know anymore.
Ambiguous.
It was like your kite thing yesterday.
My big epiphany about kites being named after kites.
Because they're kites.
Because they're kites.
And in case you're wondering, she's talking about the bird.
The kite, the toy, being named after Kite the bird. Because the kite, the toy looks like Kite the bird. It was a big epiphany last night at midnight during our devotions.
I laughed a lot.
Yes. I had been working a lot on my paper at that point, so I was a little bit out of it.
Just like, wow. Thank you, Captain Obvious.
I was yesterday years old when I figured that out, so yeah.
I'm sorry.
To be fair, it wasn't like I contemplated it very often in my lifetime.
Oh,
Not
dear.
like I was sitting there my whole life. Why they call it a kite? Like, it wasn't like I was sitting like
record
this.
your devotions and be great. You'd be great spin-off podcast.
I've thought about it. Maybe if we could get up to our 1,000 followers one day on TikTok, we could start doing TikTok lives.
I was actually saying that one of these days we should do a couch podcast where we're just sitting on the couch doing our usual talking thing and some of the things that come up, because we have some of the most fabulously conversations.
Yeah, we'll be in one mode, and next thing we're talking about something completely different. So yeah, it's a little bit of hail rain out there.
Oh, you see it too, right?
Welcome to the Unscripted Natasha and Monique podcasts.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much, it's interesting. We should have our devotional podcast, devotional time, and people can eventually join in. Maybe we'll Facebook Live it or something, because on TikTok, you actually have to have 1,000 followers before you can go live.
Ooh.
Oh.
But I don't think you need that on Facebook.
And all of our friends and family will be there, and they can have a good chuckle with it. We're going live. Come and watch.
I'll bring my extended family. You should be up to 5,000 at that point.
There we go.
It's one way to market ourselves in a sense.
Yeah. And it would probably be beneficial for other people to have my incredible amount of like epiphanies. Obviously, it changed everybody's life now, right?
Yes. My life is forever changed now that I know something I already knew. But that's okay.
Yes.
I just had to laugh. It was too funny. But it's the same thing when you say, "Is that your girlfriend or your girlfriend?" And you're just like, "Sorry, what?"
Yeah. And you don't want to seem rude in this day and age either. But then we know from all the assumptions made about us. So it's just,
What's wrong with friend? What's the misinterpretation when you just say friend?
it's not that. It's just that girlfriend has been used a lot. It's been a common usage for women to use as, oh, I went out with my girlfriends, or my girlfriend told me this. And at one point, you just assumed it was your girl that's a friend. That's just what they called it. But now
Oh, yeah,
it's
I
just taken
guess.
on such a new meaning.
Yep.
Like,
Because
I don't think guys would have been like, hey, I'm hanging out with my boyfriends. They would
well,
just
that
been like, oh, I'm hanging out with the guys, is what they
Yeah,
would
the
say.
boys.
that's
say
what they would say. Yeah.
Boys, the guys.
But even if girls say, I'm going out with my friends, people say, oh, is that like guy friends or girlfriend? Because they want to know if you're dating. So we tend, yeah, I'm going out with girls.
If to say multiples, like girlfriends, then generally people assume, and that even in today's day and age of polyamory, people are going to think,
Yeah.
oh, they have multiple
The
sexual partners.
ambiguity came when we began to accept same-sex
Yeah.
relationships.
So it's definitely ambiguous now. So it's a lot of craziness, but we just find like excuse me, didn't hit my button in time. I just find that the relationships that you can have that are intimate, platonically intimate, they fulfill a lot more than we think they will. Because we think that there's friendship and there's family and whatever, but then there's romantic relationship, and that's just a deeper, more pure, more organic type of love that produces so much more true and goodness and whatever it is that we think it does. Like we just see it as more. Just as I'm reviewing, I'm gonna probably do this on the podcast next time because I'm into the theology of singleness, but how like the things like sexuality or it's really going there.
There was
The
some there.
sexuality or the purity, like the celibacy became like it's more holy.
Yes.
Then it bounces back and forth. I'll talk about that next time. But just the fact that we see it as something more and that any other relationship doesn't even come near to touching it. Which is silly because the relationship between you and God is like the most important one, is the one that will be most fulfilling, the one that will meet all the needs. And sometimes those needs are met through other people, but through Christ.
Yeah.
Like Christ, God brought Monique and myself together as friends and then as housemates, as sisters in Christ, but has created an intimacy, a platonic intimacy that is deeper because of God. And it fulfills some of these needs because of God, not because specifically of Monique or myself, but because of it together with God, with the relationship with God.
And it's amazing how God has, through our relationship, changed us for the better. Before I won't speak for you, but I know for myself, my devotional life was sporadic at best. Praying, same thing. But now, like, I think it's been like now 2 years, solid.
We're into our third year, yeah.
Yeah.
Of reading scripture every day, during the nights that I get my nerve pain and stuff where I can't do it or whatever. But
Yep. Yeah. And that's normal, natural, that when you're sick or whatever, that it's harder to do that kind of thing. But we have been pretty consistent with every night with our Bible study and praying. And yeah, now we're getting to a point where, hey, we've prayed everybody healthy. What else can we do?
or then some, and then so I don't know. So I think that we have to look at, okay, if it's a sin thing that you think that a relationship's going to fix, then that's a heart issue that has to be dealt with between you and God. And there might be some things that you need to do isn't just going to be like, okay, I'll magically fix you if you're not putting up and trying to do things within your own end. Say that pornography is an issue. Like, are you setting up like accountability partners? Are you setting up like filters on your internet or whatever it is? Like, you can't just be like, okay, God, I'm going to continue my life just as before. Make sure you fix this. God wants us to do our part, but we're not going to do it without God and with a person in place of God. And loneliness and the same-sex attraction or pornography issue or any of these other things like sin issue or things that we fear are only going to be fixed with the help of God, using us and other people. That's why it says like that a cord with 3 strands was not easily broken. It's not just about marriage, right? It's not just about marriage. It's about
Companionship.
intimacy.
Yeah, it's about companionship, being in
It's
community.
two people and God. It doesn't necessarily have to be a husband and wife and God, even though it gets used in that way. Just like all the chapter 13 of was 1 Corinthians 13 about love is always used at weddings, but it's meant to be generally love, like yes, married love as well as, but other loves as well fall under that. And so it should be,
They should just stick with Genesis.
yeah.
We will
But
find them out.
anyway, but yeah, so
Even
there's
that-
nothing wrong with, there's nothing wrong with using the love chapter as a marriage thing, but it's not just only a marriage thing.
Right.
But that same with the cord of 3 strands, like God expects us to live in community with others, but also Him. So saying you don't need others and you just need God didn't create us that way. He created us to be in intimate community with one another, but also with Him, all 3 of them together. And it's those 3 things that can lead to fixes, I guess, or fixes. But I don't know if that's the right word for that, but it can lead to a change of heart. It can lead to a change of circumstance. It can lead to, I don't know, just better understanding of yourself and each other. And it can lead to things like accountability and stuff like that, which can help with habitual sin. It's usually how you have to try to create like a new way of living life to try to break the habit.
Yeah. And now we're going into David's territory.
Huh?
So what actually transforms a person?
Transforms a person.
Yeah. What actually transforms a person?
In most cases, rock bottom.
That can be the list for change.
No, that is the fundamental catalyst for change. Is that
But there's only one.
In most cases, it's rock bottom for people.
Yeah.
Or
And
A
then,
rock bottom occurs because you tried everything else.
yeah. But the only thing that you have yet to try is the Savior.
So one of the things that I have noticed, or have just observed really, is that we call it rock bottom, but effectively there is 1 or 2 things in your life that if either both of them or one of them is taken away, it knocks you down to the point where you realize, okay, something is wrong. If I don't change anything, it's going to get perpetually worse from this point.
And what is that? Do you know what those are?
No. It's different for each person.
Oh.
So this could be anything from a valued relationship, where if you're doing things and then the person confronts you saying, look, if you continue this path, then I can't hang out with you, I can't interact with you in the same way, that can trigger a response that says, whatever I'm doing in my life right now is driving these people away. It's driving what I hold valued and important away. And I feel like in most cases, it is a relationship-based situation where you're driving either your closest friends away, your family away, but it also can be comfort too. If you're very comfortable in life, then all of a sudden, if in any form, even if it's a temporary, and that comfort is taken away, then you pretty much feel like you've hit rock bottom. You've broken down.
Cool. Yeah, I like that. Sounds good. So therein is where we can only turn to Jesus for our, and I've heard many stories of that kind of thing where you've basically your whole life has fallen apart. You've tried everything known to man, try to fix it or to get some answers, and there are none. And then there's only one person that you can turn to who actually will fix your life. It won't happen overnight.
So ironically, in most cases, when you hit that point in your life, you know exactly what would fix it. But you're utterly not willing to pursue that fix because it will either expose addictions, pornography, drugs, whatever, and it'll expose your sins to the world or to close friends. And a lot of times people are concerned, or am I going to lose these friends?
I have happened upon a podcast recently from that was on apologetics. I think you pointed me to the apologetics one. I'd heard it originally through Jordan Peterson. So there is a very famous comedian, Russell Brand, and for many of you have heard his name. And if you haven't, you don't want to go and look at his stuff from 3 years ago because it's pretty raunchy. Yeah. But he had one of those kind of moments happen to him. He had been going through AA. He had tried all sorts of things. And then he turned to Jesus. And to hear his testimony.
He also will say, like, he had everything. He had money, he had women, he had fame, he had everything that he thought people wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. Only to find them nothing but empty shells. Yeah. And then he gave his life to Christ, and his testimony, and he gives that on the Apologetics podcast. He also talks about it with Jordan Peterson. And a guy talks a mile a minute, but it's one of the most amazing things I have ever heard, because I have heard of Russell Brand. Russell Brand, he's a Christian. Are you sure? Because I've heard this stuff and it's just, I can't listen to that. That's my ears are bleeding. But to hear him now, and it's just, wow. And I think his conversion happened in April of 2023, is what it sounds like. And he has his struggles, and he talks about that on his own podcast. And he talks about the things, he still has a ways to go, but that's typical of anybody who is still a new Christian. We don't become pure and holy on the first day.
We don't know everything.
Yeah, we don't know everything, and it's a process, and it's a learning. And he is in that place now. Pray for him, because I think, like a lot of our brothers and sisters who have gone through really tough times, found themselves now as a Christian believer, but are still questioning their struggles. They need our prayers. They need our prayers and to help them through these dark times, because this is usually where people tend to fall. Because
I think people need to realize is that if you become to believe in Christ, it's not like now you have to be pure and innocent for the rest of your natural life. Jesus, the reason Jesus died was because he knew that is because he expected us to continue to sin. That's why the sacrifice means anything at all, is because he knew that we would have to continue, that we would end up continuing. If we don't intend to or we don't want to, as long as we believe in him and our hearts are willing to follow him, that's enough.
Yeah. And he will do everything else necessary for us. We are going from glory to glory. So every day, every month, every year, see us changing, even in little itty bitty places. When I first became a Christian, I don't think anybody had the kind of struggles that I did in your first year. My first year saw me almost lose my daughter to a horrible abusive situation that left her in a wheelchair. And I'd only been a Christian maybe a year when that happened. And I remember my mom saying, "How can you still believe in God when this happened?" And I said, "But God didn't do this. A sinful person did this." And granted, God could have stopped it. God could do a lot of that for a lot of people in this world. Where does he stop? When everybody says, we got to get rid of evil, where do we stop? Because I don't know about you, but I could just get into my car and all of a sudden I'm a different person.
So
But I think,
I think a lot of people misunderstand one core concept. See if I can remember this, because I literally just had it and now it's gone. Shoot, it's complete. Natasha, you talk. See if I
I was just going to say, because I think we need to wrap up now, but if David, you remember, you can still pop in. But remember too that hopefully what we're talking about can resonate with you, so that just because a lot of people hit rock bottom doesn't mean that you have to wait till that moment. You don't have to wait till rock bottom. If you feel like you're struggling with some of these things, you don't have to be like, I still got to hit rock bottom before I can change. No, God's calling you to
Point
change now.
So
Yeah.
that wasn't my point. My point was is that normally the change occurs once someone hits rock bottom. Because
Yeah, and all I'm
because-
saying is that because we're talking about it,
but
like, to the point of like that's
typically
the
a
only
person
option.
won't even realize there is a problem until the
Yeah.
rock bottom point.
Mine was opposite. I hadn't hit rock bottom when I accepted Christ. I just went, oh, I think I want to try that. My rock bottom came after.
But I think sometimes people realize that there are issues. Like they'll say things like, I know I have a porn issue and I don't know how to deal with it. And then they'll try different ways or whatever. So like you might know you have the issue, but it's to understand what type of issue it is. It's not just like it's a heart issue. It's not just like a physical issue, like a simple issue. And
Yeah.
so then if you can realize that early, then you can, not that you skip the rock bottom, like David said, usually happens because they don't realize it. But sorry. Yeah.
Bless you.
Excuse me. But a lot of people, but I don't want people to think change can't happen unless I hit rock bottom.
Right.
It can happen. So you can pray about the things that you're going through, but just understand that singleness or things that are happening while you're single are not fixed by marriage.
No.
Marriage is a good thing, but it's not God. It's not God. It can't change heart. It can't change minds. It can't, it's not God.
No.
It's just a gift from God, just like singleness. And that when you're looking for that to be your fix, or if your circumstances changed because you were married, then that would be a fix.
It's just
Or
two
that would
single
be where
people-
God's.
two sinful people living a sinful life as the best they can.
I remembered what I wanted to say now. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think a big key problem I think we have with people is that they always see God as the problem, right? The sin
Interesting.
occurred, so then why didn't God fix it? God is the problem here. And I think a lot of people need to flip their perspective. What if God's the solution? So if you
Right.
view God as the problem, try looking it through someone else's eyes, or walk through someone else's shoes who sees God as the solution to these things instead of the problem. And that might
Right.
change someone's mind. It might influence someone in a different way. But I think it's very important that you look through both glasses. If someone sees God as the problem, then try to see God as
The
the
other.
solution. And vice versa too. To understand the people who feel like God is the problem, you have to try to see through their glass. Like, why did he see God as the problem?
Another podcast.
There's always another podcast.
There's always another
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah.
And
I
on
think
that
it's
note-
time that, yes, I think we need to wrap this up. We're heading over an hour now and I have to go. But hopefully that we made some sense while we were talking. And now everyone knows why a kite is called a kite. So I know that's what you were wondering. Yeah. We hope that you will join us here next time for an amazing conversation that may also tell you obvious things.
That's our
We'll
that's
see.
our that's
see
our
what happens.
motto now. Why a kite is a kite.
Kite is a kite because a kite is a kite. Yeah, so there we go.
There you go.
We'll see you all here next
Yeah.
time.
Bye-bye.
Bye for now.
So what's the takeaway? Singleness isn't a problem to be fixed, and marriage isn't a magic cure-all. The real transformation happens when we stop looking for another person to solve our struggles and to start seeing God as the ultimate solution. Whether single or married, our call remains the same: to live fully for Christ, in community with others, and to trust that God's plan is good even when it doesn't look like what we expected. Thanks for joining us today on the Route 77 podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. We'll see you next time for another episode. And who knows, maybe we'll have another mind-blowing epiphany about kites. And remember to live your single life to its fullest.